Whether you've recently purchased a pool table, or want to impress your friends, or you've just been hustled at a pool hall, KnowledgeWare's How to Play Pool DVD will lead you through the basics of playing pool to advanced techniques that will have you hitting shots like a pro. The KnowledgeWare at Home Educational DVD series is the first to provide an innovative, easy-to-follow, interactive step-by-step course for the entire family. Each chapter on this DVD gives you a 1 to 2 minute overview on a variety of subjects related to playing pool. Our chapter-driven course can be viewed independently so that you can get the information you need quickly and learn at your own pace. Along with its chapter-driven course, KnowledgeWare has broken new ground with its interactive learning tools, designed specifically to help you quickly and efficiently find and recognize the information that is important to you. Here to guide you through these revolutionary new learning tools is our interactive host.
Thank you. First and foremost, among these unique interactive tools are these 3 colored spheres at the bottom of your screen. This green sphere signifies that the expert is giving information that is of general importance. The orange sphere next to it will illuminate when the expert is about to present extremely important information. And finally, the red sphere will only be activated when the expert is giving information that you need to know and should pay close attention to. Another incredibly handy interactive tool is this flashing arrow. When one appears on the screen, it will point to the number of other chapters that have information directly related to what the expert is speaking about at that point. You can use your DVD player's remote to click on the chapter number and be taken directly to that chapter, like clicking a link on a web page. Lastly, you will see a camera like this one pop up on your screen. When you see the camera, it means that there are extra camera angles available for you to view. By pressing the angle button on your DVD player's remote, you will be able to see those additional angles, which will give alternate views of the procedure the expert is demonstrating. For further help with these interactive tools, you can select the Interactive Help option, which can be found in the KnowledgeWare Information Center. Once you feel comfortable with these tools, it's time to begin learning with KnowledgeWare.
Thank you. Our certified pool expert, Tony Annigoni, known to the pool world as a Renaissance hustler, will personally instruct you on everything from the correct stance when hitting a shot to perfecting complex combination shots. If you see yourself as the next Minnesota Fats, or just want to enjoy a wonderfully diverse and interesting game, this DVD provides a great start on your journey through the amazing game that is 8-ball.
The activity of shooting pool apparently evolved from a form of French croquet. Played on a lawn, a ball was pushed around the field with wooden maces. The game was then moved inside, but to keep the connection to the lawn, the game was played on a table covered with green cloth to represent grass. Hi, my name is Tony Annigoni, and I'm a professional pool player. This is my game Pool, and I hope to share some of the secrets that have made me a great player with you today. Billiards and pool are not the same thing. Billiards refers to all cue sports, including pool, carom, a game played on a billiard table with no pockets, and snooker, a British version of pool. However, pool specifically refers to a game played on a billiard table with pockets, like those you see on this table. The first thing to know about pool is that there are 15 balls. Some of these balls, numbers 1 through 7, are solids, meaning that the entire ball is one color. The other balls, 9 through 15, are stripes, meaning that the balls have white tops and bottoms with a colored stripe painted around the middle. Balls were originally made of wood, like croquet balls. Today, the best balls are composed of impact-resistant plastic. When playing 8-ball, the 8-ball, which is black, is not considered to be either a solid or a stripe. It's special. For to win the game, you must sink the 8-ball in the proper sequence. The cue ball is the ball you hit with the cue stick. When playing pool, you never hit any of the other balls with the cue stick, only the cue ball, forcing it to carry them into the other balls and make them in the pockets on the table. When people talk about playing pool, they're almost always talking about 8-ball. 8-ball is the most popular pocket billiard game in the United States and probably worldwide when judged by the number of people playing. The basic point is simple. You will either be the solid balls or the stripe balls. Your opponent will be the opposite. The stripes or solids are designated following the break. Even if the player breaking sinks a stripe or solid, that player or the next player will have to sink a ball from the stripe or solid group to designate their group. The goal is to get all of your own balls into pockets and then sink the 8-ball before your opponent can do so. But you can't sink the 8-ball until all of your own balls have been pocketed. In addition, you must call the pocket you intend to make the 8-ball in prior to your shot. 8-ball in the corner pocket. The cue stick is the stick you use to hit the cue ball. The cue stick in pool is equivalent to a bat in baseball or a club in golf. Cues range in value from approximately a $20 one-piece house cue found in your local pool tavern to a fine custom-made two-piece cue in the $1,000 to $3,000 range. A cue stick has several components. The tip, traditionally made of compressed leather and absorbs the strike on the cue ball. Tips compress on strike, increasing the contact and allowing the cue ball to remain touching for a longer period of time. The ferrule. The tip is usually glued to a ferrule, which is the white, approximately half-inch piece of plastic or ivory that is next to the tip on almost all cues. Some cues used for snooker actually have brass ferrules, but these are not common in the United States. The shaft. The smooth, narrow length between the tip and the middle of the stick. The shaft is the wooden dowel-shaped piece that the tip and the ferrule are glued to. The shaft is tapered and usually made of maple. The joint. In a two-piece cue, there is a joint where the cue comes apart for easy transportation. There are many combinations of materials employed in joints, and personal preference on how one would like his cue to strike, as well as decor, plays a large part in that decision. The butt. The butt is the bottom half of the cue. Butts are typically made of splices of more than one type of wood. A large part of the butt is mainly for decor, with many cues literally becoming works of art in today's market. Players often prefer cues with wraps made of leather, linen, or some applicable synthetic. The butt is typically terminated with a rubber bumper, usually matching the decorative theme of the cue. Two types of chalk are used in billiards, tip chalk and hand chalk. Let's talk about chalk we apply to the cue tip first. The chalk for the tip serves to increase friction between your tip and the ball. You should apply chalk evenly to your tip and frequently during play. I recommend reapplying chalk after every shot. Let me demonstrate the technique I employ. Hand chalk or baby powder is used on the cue shaft and hands to allow the shaft to glide smoothly. For those of us whose hands tend to sweat, it might be a good solution. I recommend keeping your hands clean and dry, your cue wiped free of dirt, and little or no use of hand chalk. In the long run, the table, the balls, your cue will remain cleaner, providing better playing conditions all around. A pool table is typically referred to as a 4.5 by 9 or a 4 by 8, referring to feet. While these measurements are approximations, the measurement that counts is the playing surface, which is from cushion to cushion and cushion to cushion. The playing surface on a standard tournament caliber table is 50 by 100 inches. When we discuss regulation tables, regardless of size, we will always be referring to the fact that the playing surface is a 2-to-1 geometric ratio. Now, this is a key piece of information when we begin to discuss aiming. The table is usually covered with a wool and polyester surface. The higher percentage of wool in the cloth, the superior the playing conditions. The table has 6 pockets, 4 corners, and 2 sides. The pool table also has rails. These are the borders around the edges of the pool table. There are 2 important things to know about the rails. 1, the rails consist of wood, and attached to the wood are rubber cushions. Occasionally during play, you may need to balance your non-dominant hand on the rail. 2, you should never place a drink or a food item on the rail, as it may spill onto the playing surface and the playing surface may need to be replaced. In addition, don't ever sit on the cushion or the rail or the playing surface, as it may make the table unlevel. Did you ever notice that near each end of the pool table there is a little fabric circle called a spot? You need these when you rack up the balls at the beginning of a game. Some players elect to break from the head spot by placing the cue ball on it. It is not required in 8-ball. The rack is the triangular shaped object that players use to arrange the balls into a neat pyramid shape before the game begins. The process of using a rack is called racking. The balls are racked in a triangle on the foot of the table, with the 8-ball in the center of the triangle. The first ball, typically the 1 ball, on the foot spot. A striped ball in one corner of the rack and a solid in the other. To do this, place all the balls into your rack with that order in mind. With your fingers inside the back of the rack, push the balls forward and close together within it. The back edge of the rack should be parallel to the end rail. Slightly turn the balls to ensure a tight rack. All adjacent balls should be touching. Rack with the front ball centered on the foot spot. When you lift the rack, the balls should remain tight and frozen together. When the game begins, someone must hit the cue ball first, sending it into the neatly racked balls and breaking them apart. To choose who breaks, lag or the flip of a coin is used. Lagging is where 2 players shoot a ball up and down the pool table. The player closest to the rail is awarded the break. The proper place for a beginner to break from is the head spot in the center of the table. Pocketing a ball is also known as sinking a ball. In some circles, it is also referred to as potting. Let me demonstrate. While you want to get your own balls into the pockets, you never want to get the cue ball, and most of the time, opponent's balls into a pocket. Let me demonstrate a basic scratch. Whether you do it on purpose or by accident, when you hit the opponent's ball or cue ball into a pocket, you have scratched and will be penalized. In most games, you must drive a ball after contact at least to a rail, or this is also considered a scratch. You also scratch if you hit the cue ball, but it completely misses hitting any balls. Most scratches or fouls result in an award to your opponent of points, ball in hand on the incoming shot, meaning that your opponent can place the ball anywhere on the table on his next turn, or will result in a loss of turn. When your opponent gives you ball in hand anywhere on the table, proper placement of the cue ball can result in winning the game. Eight ball in the corner pocket. When the cue ball is directly touching another ball or the cushion of the table, it is considered frozen. These balls can be tough to hit properly. Position play is the act of hitting the cue ball with the necessary speed, angle, or English to get the cue ball to end up someplace on the table where you'll be able to get the next ball in easily. We are going to talk about setting up. Let's get in position to break the balls. With the stick in hand, stand close to the table with legs lined up parallel to the edge of the table. Keep your feet parted about a shoulder's length. Balance your weight equally between both feet. Grip the butt of the cue stick with your dominant hand. The grip should be 6 to 8 inches in back of the balance point of the cue. My dominant hand is my right hand, so I will place my right foot in line with the center of the cue ball. On the break shot, I will be aiming the center of the cue ball to strike the center of the one ball. I will bend my left knee to the table slightly while keeping my back knee straight and lean towards the table. To go further, we must discuss the bridge. Let's demonstrate. To make a proper bridge with the hand that will hold the shaft, first, make a fist. Next, make a loop with your index finger and thumb. Place the shaft of the cue through the loop. When that feels comfortable, then simply extend your other fingers and place your hand on the table. This is referred to as a closed bridge. Let's demonstrate. In the event you can't get comfortable with a closed bridge, you may want to try an open bridge as an alternative. I strongly recommend a closed bridge, but many accomplished players rely frequently on an open bridge. An open bridge can be made when you lift your thumb slightly and lay the shaft of the cue in the crease between your thumb and the side of your hand. Try sliding the stick back and forth in the crease. It should slide smoothly and evenly. Let me demonstrate use of the open bridge. If your hand can't reach the 5 or 10 inches to the cue ball, consider using a mechanical bridge. The mechanical bridge is a cue stick with a head attached that has ridges on the end, allowing you to rest the cue for shots you have difficulty reaching. Let me demonstrate use of the mechanical bridge. start the aiming process, you must judge the angle. Judging the angle is a term used to describe exactly from where you are standing behind the cue ball. You need to send the cue ball for it to make contact with the object ball so that the object ball will enter the pocket. While there are different approaches to judging the pocketing angle, as long as they really work, one would have difficulty making the case that one technique would be superior to another. I prefer the approach used by the great player Willie Mosconi. If you already have a surefire way of judging the angle, you may want to rely on it. There is always just one contact point between the cue ball and the object ball, regardless of the angle. On a straight-in shot, the point on the cue ball that must strike the object ball is the point closest to the object ball contact point. On a cut shot, the part of the cue ball that must hit the object ball is always determined by drawing a parallel line to the cue ball in relation to the line from the target to the object ball. When you connect these points visually, you establish the contact line. If the cue ball contact point makes contact with the object ball contact point at proper speed, the object ball will enter the pocket in question every time without fail. To accomplish this, your cue line, or line of the cue stick, must also be parallel to the contact line as illustrated here. Side English can result in the ball deflecting. By keeping your cue parallel, you can reduce this effect dramatically. Once you have found the line between the cue ball and the object ball, you can extend that line onto the floor in front of your feet. Once you find that line, step into it with your proper foot. Right foot for right-handers, left foot for left-handers. Pointing your toes at an angle of about 45 degrees to that line. Ideally, the line should run through the bridge of your foot, but the toes or the heel are okay too. After playing a while, you will find the lineup that is most appropriate for yourself. You should arrange your body so that your shoulders are perpendicular to that imaginary line. To get in position to shoot, you simply pivot on your lineup foot, placing your opposite foot parallel to the extended imaginary line, but not across it. Now, step forward with the heel of your left foot about shoulder width to the left of the right heel and about 4 inches ahead of the toes of your right foot, with the right foot perpendicular to the extended imaginary line. Let's demonstrate. Following through means extending your dominant arm in a straight line following the direction your cue ball went. You should follow through at least a couple of inches on all shots and a whole foot or more on powerful or breaking shots. Let me demonstrate. Sighting the shot is relatively easy, but we often err in the process. The fact is that our eyes can sometimes deceive us. The key here is to look and really see what you are aiming at. Remember, the angle of the shot can tend to look different when you are down on the shot compared to when you are standing upright behind the cue ball. Always readdress the ball in the event you are unsure. Remember, don't change the angle when you are down on the shot. It helps to always consider the angle through the equator or the waist of the ball. Again, if you are unsure, get up and repeat the lineup sequence. So now you're in perfect position to make a shot. Stroke the cue back and forth in your bridge several times to get your arm moving and your balance together. When you feel ready, pull back and strike the cue ball. When possible, always attempt to strike the cue ball at the center. This will improve accuracy. Your eyes should be going back and forth from the cue ball strike point to the object ball contact point. The great British snooker player Joe Davis always took one last look at the Q-tip position on the cue ball prior to his last take on the object ball. The last look, you should be at the object ball contact point, and your eyes should remain on that line. At the precise moment that the stick comes in contact with the ball, your dominant arm should be at a 90-degree angle to the floor or slightly forward. When you hit a cue ball straight into an object ball, the object ball will move in a straight line. However, if you cut the ball, that means that you hit the cue ball so that it hits the object ball on the side, allowing the object ball to travel at an angle to the right or left of the cue ball. The majority of shots you will face will be at some degree of an angle to the cue ball and be in need of a cut. Let me demonstrate. This is an example of a straight in. This is an example of a cut. Banking is when you hit the cue ball hits an object ball, and the object ball rebounds off the cushion of the table in an attempt to pocket the ball. It is always preferable to play a straight in or cut shot directly to the pocket. But many times the balls take positions that require a bank to score and continue your inning. Another time that a bank shot may be favorable from a strategy standpoint is if you can improve your position of the cue ball by banking. When banking a ball, the angle of incidence, meaning the angle the ball enters the rail, equals or close to equals the angle of deflection, meaning the angle the ball takes toward the target. To find the proper contact points on the cue ball and the object ball, you take the following steps. Find the desired angle you prefer the object ball to take toward the pocket. Find the point closest to the target on the side of the object ball facing the target. On the side of the object ball, the cue ball will strike. Find the point farthest away in line with the desired angle. Once you find that line, visualize a parallel line to the side of the cue ball that will strike the object ball. Using the technique we covered in aiming, locate the contact line. Address the ball and shoot. Combination is when you shoot the cue ball into an object ball, which in turn hits a second object ball into the pocket. A draw shot is employed when you wish the cue ball to reverse spin or come back toward you for position play. By striking the ball toward the bottom, you create backspin. That way, when it hits the object ball, the cue ball will roll back towards you. This is called a draw shot. Hitting the cue ball at the top will result in high English. This effect makes the cue ball spin forward at a greater rate of spin than if it were rolling naturally. You employ high English when you want the cue ball to roll forward or away from you. By striking the ball toward the top, you create top spin. Let's demonstrate. Side English is used by hitting the cue ball on the right or left side so that it spins in a cylindrical manner. This is sometimes referred to as running English or reverse English, depending on which side of the ball you hit. These both help in directing or changing the natural angle that the cue ball takes after striking the object ball. Let's demonstrate reverse English. time to time, balls in your group will be clustered in a manner that will make it difficult for you to continue your inning. When this occurs, proper strategy will require you to play a breakout shot. From time to time, you'll find yourself slightly blocked from shooting the object ball you've selected a pocket. Let's demonstrate a simple jump shot technique. Now that we have provided you with the basic mechanics that you will require to become an accomplished player, let's talk about the keys to success. You must play frequently, expose yourself to better players in organized play, and practice, practice, practice. Then near each end of the pool table, there's a little fabric circle called a spot. You need these at the beginning of the game when you're racking the balls. Some players elect to break from the head spot by placing the cue ball on it. It is not required in 8-ball. The rack is the triangular shaped object that players use to arrange the balls into a neat pyramid shape before the game begins. The process of using a rack is called racking. The balls are racked in a triangle on the foot of the table. The first ball, typically the 1, on the foot spot with the 8 ball in the center of the rack. A striped ball in one corner of the rack and a solid in the other. To do this, place all the balls into your rack with that order in mind. With your fingers inside the back of the rack, push the balls forward and close together within it. The back edge of the rack should remain parallel to the end rail. Slightly turn the balls to ensure a tight rack. All adjacent balls should be touching. Rack with the front ball centered on the foot spot. When you lift the rack, the ball should remain tight and frozen. Sighting the shot is relatively easy, but we often err in the process. The fact is that our eyes can sometimes deceive us. The key here is to look and really see what you are aiming at. Remember, the angle of the shot can tend to look different when you are down on the shot compared to when you are standing upright behind the cue ball. Always readdress the ball in the event you are unsure. Remember, don't change the angle when you are down on the shot. It helps to always consider the angle through the equator or the waist of the ball. Again, if you are unsure, get up and repeat the lineup sequence. So now you're in perfect position to make a shot. Stroke the cue back and forth in your bridge several times to get your arm moving and your balance together. When you feel ready, pull back and strike the cue ball. When possible, always attempt to strike the cue ball at the center. This will improve accuracy. Your eyes should be going back and forth from the cue ball strike point to the object ball contact point. The great British snooker player Joe Davis always took one last look at the cue tip position on the cue ball prior to his last take on the object ball. The last look, you should be at the object ball contact point, and your eyes should remain on that line. At the precise moment that the stick comes in contact with the ball, your dominant arm should be at a 90-degree angle to the floor or slightly forward.